Hi everyone, good to be back. We're here with part 2 of Mike O'Donnell's podcast. Enjoy, he always has a lot to share. And do press subscribe if you haven't already, and leave comments in the comment section. But also feel free to suggest any other subjects that you'd like Mike to touch on. He's open to doing that, and we are open to coming back and addressing anything that you would like to know. Enjoy the podcast. Morena, Mike, so lovely to have you back. So great. Love it. This is part 2. So those of you who want to go back and see part 1, I'd highly recommend it. It's a deeper dive into the spirit, or wairoa, as we say here in Māori, in Aotearoa, of water. Now, for those who don't yet know you, Mike, on this earthly plane, you're an artist, a storyteller, a potter, an environmental activist, and a poet. Someone who has spent a lifetime in close relationship with your connection and drawing off the sentience of water. As such, here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, you've often been referred to as Mike, the waterman, or the water carrier. Now, beyond the ancient practical role of a water carrier, which we know from, tribal people all around the world, it is a role of deep spiritual resonance, with water being the giver of life, a purifier, and the humble server of the divine and community. So your book, gotta recommend it, so good. Such a beautiful book, people. You want to read this. Is it, in a way, what I found to be a gentle unfolding of that relationship you have with water, and how we all have spiritual coherence with our water, which is where I want to start today and ask you, how do we experience water as consciousness, and why is it important for us to do so? Big question, Mike.
Yeah, big question. That's good. And before we begin, morena, Susie, ngā mihi aroha kia koe te hoa, i te wahi ne toa, te kōrero, te wai, but you are the anchor stone of this conversation with water. So this is my second time with you, so here we go. So I'm going to open with some sounds of water in a clay jar, and the water carrier, and where we are, this vessel, this clay vessel of life, we are given the waters of life. There is water in this jar, and we're given the breath to find our song. And so I'll open with this, and for those of you out there, I'll explain on the way. Kia ora whānau. Ngā mihi aroha kia koutou e te whānau o te wai. Acknowledging all of you out there. This incredible family here on planet Earth, this family of water beings. E te whānau o te kākano a Rangiatia, this family that has come in from outer space, a star seed here on planet Earth. And without the water, there is no life to that seed. And this is our purpose here on earth, and that we are the gardeners, the healers, artists, and the lovers of that divine seed. Ngā mihi aroha anō. Kia hora te māreno, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, kia tiri te ka rohi rohi. Those words from the old people of this land. Kia hora te māreno, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, kia tiri te ka rohi rohi. Those words from the old people of this land. Kia hora te māreno, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, kia tiri te ka rohi rohi. Those words from the old people of this land. Kia hora te māreno, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, kia tiri te ka rohi rohi. Those words from the old people of this land. Kia hora te māreno, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, kia tiri te ka rohi rohi. Those words from the old people of this land. Kia hora te māreno, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, kia tiri te ka rohi rohi. Those words from the old people of this land. Kia hora te māreno, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, kia tiri te ka rohi rohi. Those words from the old people of this land. Kia hora te māreno, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, kia tiri te ka rohi rohi. Those words from the old people of this land. Kia hora te māreno, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, kia tiri te ka rohi rohi. Those words from the old of that old world Te Māori, which extends beyond these shores. Those old words, they talk about how when we come together like this, all of our waters come together and they run so deep. And so we swim down into these waters to lift the memory, the common unity of the memory of water carriers. And it is a call that those waters are smooth, like the greenstone, like the pounamu. They also talk about and remind us of the warmth within us all. You know, there is a spark of recognition within each one of us. And when those sparks come together and we breathe life into those sparks, there comes about a powerful, powerful volition. Eh? And if we look out beyond us, behind us, our elders, our old people, our ancestors, our tupuna, they are all there waiting for us to remember and to accept all that we have come through, all that has come to pass, had to happen for us to be prepared to take this next step. So I call you in as a family of Waitaha Nui Tono, 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 Tono. Always been, since the beginning of perceived time, that every single one of you is that water carrier, is that memory carrier. You are that seed carrier, and in there resides the wisdom that you are the carrier of peace and of aroha. No reira, Susie said to me that last little journey we took together, we got a number of listeners from Turtle Island, from the Americas and elsewhere, and I send a call out to you and all we're going through on this planet, all of us, and those in the Middle East and everywhere who maybe are listening in, that Waitaha is beyond these shores. It's a planetary way of reminding us all that is what we are. We are the seed carrier, the water carrier. And so I send a call out to you. Yeah, a call of love.
Beautiful. Can you tell me, for those who don't know, Waitaha, what is that?
Yeah. Waitaha. Well, Waitaha is an ancient story that, as I said, has come from beyond these shores, but however, held here powerfully in the past by a people called Waitaha. The memory carriers, the water carriers, the seed carriers. And within that, and I hear people talk about the Akashic records and all of this old wisdom, inherent in their wisdom were all the old stories of the journeys from the stars to planet Earth here, our phenomenal existence here in past generations of civilizations that are some folded back into the earth now, some under the sea, some gone back. And Waitaha are the keepers of the stories and the wisdom of that way of being. In fact, it is an adept way of being that we're talking about metaphorically. However, it was a living reality in an ancient time. However, we're not in that time anymore. And I shared last podcast, Susie, I shared the wisdom of the toko, the talking stick. And this is an old talking stick of Waitaha. And the challenge within this talking stick, this toko, he taonga tuku iho, that this connects the past and the future in the moment. And the challenge was given to me by the old people when they found me wandering into high court hearings carrying a water jar. The challenge was, Mike, you have a gift. Bring the memory of that old way of the water carrier into the moment, into the world of ordinary, so that all of the kids can access this and opening up their waters, the memory of their waters. They're listening to their waters, the symbiotic relationship of what we say in this land, ko wai o, for o to wai. I am the water and the water is me. There's such profound wisdom, Susie, in this land that must not be denied or allowed to be denied. Because o tēnei te wā, meaning that it is time now. And this wisdom has been held here for a long time. And now is the time for this to come out. So, waitaha, in the moment, in the now, there is so much coming together now, you know, like science is even meeting us there, you know.
Yeah,
or
thankfully.
Science is discovering, like we have discovered. And the old people are going, oh, thank goodness for that. They've discovered. Yes, okay, fair enough. That's good. And we're entering into another intelligence, a greater intelligence. We're realizing that this is not the mind, this is the brain. That the heart centers our old mind and is watered from the gut, the taha, the vessel of our waters. No waters, no life, you know. And so we are talking now more and more about deep emotional intelligence coming through, listening to our waters and the symbiotic relationship that exists between our waters and the waters of that planet, this beautiful earth, this beautiful water being, this beautiful mother seed, astral, earthly. And so, you know, we're in this time now where this needs to awaken, because the waters out there, the state of the waters in the world, are a reflection of our waters. And when our waters are repressed or suppressed, when that intelligence is repressed or suppressed, and then the waters, our waters, become unwell. And so we treat water as a resource, and it's not. Weren't you going to ask me about a sentient being?
I absolutely. Well, I did in the beginning.
Yeah.
The you know, is water sentient? I mean,
it is water sentient. Well, to be quite honest, I when you asked me that the other day, I just thought, oh God, I do not. I'd be a fool to answer that question, because there actually is no answer. However, I'll sail close to the wind.
Go on.
I'll paddle close to the currents of the water. Water is the most profound mystery on earth. There's no question about it. There's no question about it. In fact, water is not so much a sentient being as water is the sentient. It is the sentient of all life. There is no sentient being in us as human beings without water.
So in a sense, it's consciousness.
It's consciousness and it's subconsciousness.
Okay.
It's literally, as you've heard me say before, it carries the memory of the darkness and the light making love. It's bipolar in its conversation, you know. It works with the mother and the father, the matriarch and the patriarch, the feminine and the masculine of life. Yeah.
Just talking about memory there, so much of today's strife is a playing out of a memory of a pattern that happens to humans. And in a way, you're saying the water has the memory as well. However, it's got the potential to draw us back into cohesion and alignment. How do we tap into have our consciousness align with the consciousness of water?
Listen.
What am I going to hear?
It is your request. It is your question. So it is your quest. We spoke, I think, last time about three waters: your birth waters, your ancestral waters, and the waters that you are now. That is a quest. When someone asks you a question like you have, I would say, go on the journey. The experience holds the reply and the answer. And what you will find there is what you are prepared for.
Right. Right.
And so with our young people over the years, having them arrive here on the land at Tarariki, and Tarariki, for those out there that don't know, is the name of the water here where I live. And some of the most wilding kids would be, delivered to me here because the system wasn't working for them. I think I mentioned last time they were predominantly Māori, young Māori men in particular. And they were on a quest, on a journey to find out. They were in that age of the passage of rights. Who am I? What am I to this? Where do I belong? And when they arrived, I would simply observe them and then take them down to the bush, and they would plunge in the waters of Tarariki. And at a time like this, the winter time, pretty chilly stuff to do, However, then they'd lie on the forest floor and I'd get them breathing. I'd get them breathing down close to the humus layer where the mycelium spores exist. And I would observe these kids going into a process of neurological shift. We'd go back to the stream later and I'd just leave them there on their own to sit and to listen to all of the different sounds and to breathe. Such a powerful meditation of simply being there listening to water. And then when we would meet later, we would do art and come into conversation, and I would hear these young men talking from a world that we call here Te Ao Māori, an adept way of being at one with the whole universe, ordinary, that you are the water, that the water is you, that you were listening to a powerful, powerful waikōrero, water talking the reflections back to you. And it opens something up through a process of form and vibration in our waters, because that's the communication of water through vibration and form. And when I go down to the stream, Susie, down to Greek Tarariki, 51 years now I've been going down there, lifting water, and in times of challenge, where we've been in high court hearings defending our mountains and ecologies from mining. When I go down there and just sit there, it gave me a really deep appreciation of that word, wehi, which we call fear, but in the decolonized world, it's known as awe and wonderment. And I would sit down there in awe and in wonderment at the sentient being that was communicating to me through vibration and form, something which is way beyond words. I can't explain that. You don't actually want to.
I did it with you because you sent me down. Actually, I'm going to lift up these to show people. I had to hold these in my palms, and dive to the bottom of the water there in Tarariki. And when I got to the bottom, which is not too far down, but it was cold but wonderfully fresh. And you guided me to send the sound HUD out to the water direction it was flowing, which you told me would go out to the whales. Okay, so I did that experience. Not the easiest thing to really expel that sound under the water, but I did it. It's not that, I did it. And then came back up, and you and I sat there and you sang. And I can say it was probably a turning point in my life. I've absolutely, look, without even going into detail, it was transformational. Yeah.
How do you explain beauty?
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got a flower, a pristine flower from the garden, and you start to take it apart and you talk about the stamens and the petals. You suddenly realize that the beauty is bigger than the sum total of the parts. And it's the same in water. Water is the most powerful expression of truth and beauty. It as the sentient being of every piece of living life on this planet, Our creative expression, we've spoken about that. The most powerful creative expression we have is for our waters to express, the
Yes.
sentience of being human. Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
I'll drop into a story because a few people said they really, and a lot of people have known some of these stories. And for those out there, to give you an insight as an artist, when the old people passed to me the toko, they sent me on a huge journey because they saw me as a sculptor able to bring forward form and vibration. This piece, human height, listening to water. They realized I was accessing another world. So they sent me on the wild journey, listening to water. And you've read this, Susie. However,
Yes.
they had huge faith in me as a creative person to listen to another world. Yeah. And so I went on this journey with the toko all the way to the tip of Aotearoa, New Zealand, and stood there at Cape Reinga where the tides meet and where the old spirits go into the underworld, in the world Māori. And I said my prayer there, Susie, as best I could, In fact, it was more a prayer beyond words because I knew the words would fail, really. And then I looked down at my feet and there's this folded up piece of paper and the joke, just got a letter from God. So, I opened it up, and there were the words and the music. Brand new, To Let It Be by the Beatles. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Yeah. So that's a reasonable sign to realize you're not psychotic. That this is for real. This is what we in this land call listening to the water spirit. Taha Wairua. I am the spirit of water. And so I went on the journey and traveled, listening to all the different waters. No expectation, Susie. Just practicing what I'd always do here at Tarariki. And then finally I got back here, and Min, who some of you know, she's passed away, my wife, and she said to me, Mike, you have to be in court 2 days' time to defend the waters. So I went back up into the source of Tarariki and I lay there up in the humus layer under an old puriri tree and went to sleep listening to water and breathing the potency of that world. And then came back out, gathered my gear and walked into a high court hearing with my artist's easel, with my bag of pastels, dirty feet, still from up in the bush, and presented what I knew was inside me and I hadn't seen yet. And basically for those out there, to give you a glimpse, this is it there. The memory of a water molecule. That water is not H2O. It's more than that. And slowly I built this up in the court hearing, journeying them through the simplicity, the ordinariness of the water cycle and the spectrum of light within the water cycle, to realize that the water, when it comes through the complete cycle, not half the cycle, but the whole cycle, it carries the medicine of the earth and the sky to us as water beings. And then in the rotation of it, to realize that that is our embryonic form. Yes. That is us at the point of conception before we even form within our mother. And the bipolar conversation of the DNA, the double helix of the mother and the father. That as children, we arrive, Susie, on earth 100% DNA knowing. We don't come here to believe what someone tells us to believe, because what actually happens in that whole process of being told, our DNA is eroded down to about 6%. The child comes here to experience that which it knows, and that is our work, to provide that environment and that support. And while it's almost cliche to rotate and to know that the heart is the center of our old mind out there, the heart connects us astrally, earthly, through the entire spectrum of life, where the masculine and the feminine dance, the double helix, where the darkness and the light make love, where the mother and the father are one, where 1 + 1 = 3. Eh?
Beautiful, Mike. Such great. So what did they in court? They must have gone, oh my God.
Oh, well, The head, he was a beautiful Rob Gwilym. He was the environmental officer for Core Gold. The funny bit at the very beginning is Paul Majuri, he's Māori, and he was acting counsel for Core Gold. And here was Paul in his flash zoot suit, you know, and all the gear, getting paid several grand a minute probably, maybe not, but close. And there was I in my old pants carrying my artist's easel and a bag of pastels. And as soon as he saw me, he said, Mike, what have you got in the plastic bag there? Lollies. And I said, no, better than that. And I delighted in taking each colour out and putting them down on his desk in front of them. I put down the black and the white. And then in between, I put every colour of the rainbow. And I turned into him and I said, Paul, I'll tell you what, today I'm not going to disappoint you, brother. And he hated me, but he loved me, you know. And at the end, when I delivered it, I was sort of in awe because I had a feeling of this, of the water molecule. I had a feeling of it inside me. I could sense it through my third eye. It had activated through my waters, through my heart, and projected up through the pineal pituitary gland, and had projected into form already, but it was still vibration. I hadn't brought it into form until I got it on the artist's easel. And Rob Gwilym, the environmental manager, he's Welsh, he came up to me, excuse the language out there, folks, but he said, couldn't you fuck off back to Ireland? He said, my God, Mike, have you recorded that? And I looked at him and I said, recorded it? I've never seen it before. It was, you know, it was kind of, and at that moment, what was so beautiful is one of our elders, or several of our elders, Uncle Kiwi and Auntie Winnie and a number of others, they got up and they began to sing and do prayer because they knew I was out of body. I was so far out and I was so far in. And that's how I delivered that piece in the middle realm. It manifests from vibration into form. And they knew that I was standing there naked and vulnerable. So they came in around me. And Frankie White-Eye, this gorgeous young Māori man, he got up and he did the haka, just to kind of scare them all away. Any adversaries. And I packed it all up, and I was standing there, and bless Uncle Tiwi, he turned to the tribunal hearing, to the water rights hearing, and he said to them, he said, we must take this now into our meeting house so we can hold Mike safely, because there he will become very conscious of what he has presented, and that will be the next layer, and we want him to feel safe and not vulnerable within our meeting house. Or Te Hauraki was the name of their meeting house. And so we went there and I presented it again, you know, and this time I had such a, it kind of blew me out, you know, and I in fact, before I asked the hearings committee if I could take the evidence, you know, this was a very big picture, you know, much bigger than this.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was all fresh and pastels. And I'm looking at it going, whoa. And I said, could I please carry this home and then carry it to the meeting place of the elders? And they said, yeah, you can do that. But it's evidence. Wow, that was pretty amazing.
Wow.
It's evidence.
Wow.
It was evident, you know, and that there's something else, because I was talking to Environment Waikato, the authority of water. Yeah. And I was challenging them on every count. Environment, Waikato, my birth river. Eh? Authority, what gives you the authority if you haven't listened to these waters? Eh? And the nature of water. So I carried the work back home and I shared it with Min. She was at home. She was the anchor stone here. She said, I will stay here, Mike, and I will anchor you here at Tarariki, because she knew I was out of body when I left to go. I was in that natural world of Te Ao Māori, you know, a way of being at one with all of this and the world of Waitaha. And I didn't believe it, Susie. I didn't believe a bit of it. It's beyond, I just knew it, but I wasn't conscious of it yet.
Right.
And so I got home and I placed the big sketch, the story, and looked at it out on the front deck on a table that's there. And I just stood there and I stepped back and looked at it. And within about 1 minute, I heard, and in flew this great big keruru, swooped down and sat right in the middle of the water molecule. Manu, the messenger. Manu, the messenger. Eh? The seed carrier. Eh? And it just looked at me, turned its head to one side like that. We recognized one another and then flew off. And Min saw it. I mean, that was one of the earliest instigators of Min saying, you have to write these things down. These, you are being given a privilege. And then I took it to the hearing, to the meeting house, the elders in town, and we downloaded it. But of course, this time I was really conscious. I had some real fun with it. You know, I was safe. I wasn't sitting on the edge of vulnerability, naked, not too sure if somebody's going to attack this white man, you know, for being such a fool or whatever. You know, who is he to have gone back to the spring to lift this memory, you know? And yet I was given a privilege and a responsibility, and that water molecule is my ability to respond in the privilege of being the way I am, the essence, the essential nature of this sentient being water, and that is water's expression. This is who I am. I am. That's what essence means. I am. Esse, to be. I am, you know. So I presented it all, and then we finished, and I was sort of sitting there, and Auntie Winnie looked at me, and she went outside, and she said, oh, my God, Mike, come out here. Come and have a look at this. And we all came outside, and I said, what, Winnie? She said, look above. And, you know, those are moments of magic. There were 3 hawks, 3 kahu, circling the house, around and around and around, and not just to stop there, but the misting rain was coming down, and a rainbow went all the way from the meeting house to home. Huh?
Magic.
Yeah. Yeah, if you think magic is bullshit, bullshit happens, you know? And that's the best way I can really talk to the sentient nature of water, and that we are, you know, the stars say it, the Piscean, the 2 fish moving opposite ways, you know, ictus, that realm of the water carrier, stitches its way all the way through the Christ line, you know, and the power of he being known as an ordinary human being, a water carrier, carrying a story on, a great story, and we're carrying it on, you know, and now is the time of that, you know. It's in the stars, it's in the Aquarian stars, it's in all the stars, and it's here on Earth. And for us to remember, Susie, that we have had to come through all of this. Our ancestors, over billions of years, have given their lives that we will be prepared to take this next step consciously. Eh? It's always a challenge from that old stone that you lifted up before, you know.
Yeah.
You know, from that moment of cosmic implosion and explosion where there is no genesis, there's no beginning, this was another revolution. And we tracked out in the 4 directions, all of us, to begin to read the primal language, you know. I've got somewhere here, I've got even better, there it is. There's the picture, you know.
Right.
I did this for the kids. Be able to see the picture that between heaven and earth, there is a miraculous journey, and now we are returning. You know, we are returning, and we've been on this phenomenal journey called experience. Of the breath of life and the waters of life, of the mother and the father, earthly and astral. And we have become this experience where we began as one single cell, and now we are trillions of cells. And around every single one of those cells, there are thousands of water molecules in a gelatinous state. And when we sing, and remember, everything is vibration, is energy, is song. When our life is singing, when our work is song, then the cell moves into the fractal image of the entire universe. And it is the water vibrating that activates the cell into that state of being.
Beautiful. I actually experienced that a little bit from you again, from you singing beautiful Te Araha on this water beside Tarariki there. And I've got a little bit of a lack of confidence, you'd say, around singing my voice. I think many people don't like the sound of their voice, right? Or their singing voice, perhaps. But I really took it to heart how in that moment it moved me and wanted to keep that going. So I started singing and I just got more confident with my own voice, just to myself when I'm driving along, kind of thing. Just whenever, actually, in the shower, in life and day, humming and then singing that particular song, which I have always loved. And it was the second time it had been sung to me in a couple of months. And I thought, okay, this is a sign. This is a sign. And so it's very interesting what you say there. Of course, we know the resonance moves the water, creates flow, its vibration, it shifts it within us. So that in itself was like something I could do to raise the my consciousness of my waters within.
That's what you're talking, and it's beautiful to see some water in the corner of your eyes and to see it sparkling. It means your waters are springing; they're coming up to find voice. The power of when our waters come up through the throat, through the larynx, is they're actually coming up through the genitalia of our creative anatomy. The anatomical expression, the theatre of your voice coming through to find the mana of your voice. It's exemplified when you make a soup. When you truly make Susie Jowsey soup, it's wow, something different in here. Or Susie's loaf of bread. You see, Wai Ata, which for those out there, Te Reo Māori, means song. However, it is more than that, way more than that. However, simply put, it is the reflection of the memory held in your waters, your deepest emotions. And so when you sing a song, you will sing it differently every time because you are singing it in a state of empathy, empathic, harmonic accordance. And right at this moment, in the face of adversity, Susie, at a planetary level, we are being challenged to bring forward the creative expression, the song of our waters into everything we do. And we're in serious adversity. I mean, we've got 3 dudes in this land alone. America, you have not got it on your own, I assure you. We've got some monkeys doing shit here. And we have 3 men, we all know who they are. And the interesting fact is they all claim to be Māori. Well, they're not being Māori. They say they're Māori. They'll whakapapa Māori. They'll make those connections Māori, but they're not being Māori. They're not being Māori at all. In fact, they're going out of their way for us not to realise the sentient nature, for us not to realise the intrinsic nature of life, for us not to see that the spiritual relationship is just ordinary. It's imbued in everything, that this water is a living being. They hate it that we got the Wanganui River registered as a living being, and now more waters and rivers are following. And thank God for the Māori people who hold the memory of this old way and the tremendous work they're doing, and we're coming with them. We are ancient to this also. However, in those political doozies out there, I've been watching those men, and what I observe is that they are terrified. They are terrified because they cannot find their song, because their waters are blocked. They're dammed by old bones of grief and anger, of repression and suppression, Susie, of killing fields. And I'm not talking hundreds of years. I'm talking thousands of years. Mm-hmm. Those ones out there that they'll call Yua Pākehā to this, they have never had an opportunity to find the healing of their grief ancestral waters. Mm-hmm. They've never, ever had it put to them, what would happen if you realize that's how huge love is? In the realm of kotapito, which is the nature of this tukutuku, kotapito means the umbilical point. Mm-hmm. In the realm of the umbilical point, in the matriarchal, from our connection to our mother, to our grandmothers, to our great-grandmothers, to our great-great-great-grandmothers, all the way back to the primordial mother ocean, all the way we lift the bones and we kiss those bones of gratitude, and all our mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers have endured. In gratitude, we hold them deep within our puku, deep within our heart, and we sing that depth of empathy and feeling with them and gratitude in all they endured. And this is the time we're in. Susie, from the great mother, and all we have done and all we do to her, and yet every morning she sings us awake.
It does.
Is that compassion? And every night she sings us back into the dream. Why? Because we are her children. And she is challenging us right now. She is really challenging us to realize that this is the time now that you have been birthed for. As an individual, as a nation, as a planet. This is the time. And the key to that is held within your waters, the birth waters. Let them sing. Let them activate that divine seed. Susie, I'll drop it in there because it sort of rises up on me right at this moment. As you know, and all those out there, my work, our work, and alongside tangata whenua, the elders of this land, I've had the privilege to defend some extraordinary geologies and geomorphologies, hydrologies, ecologies, and of course central to that geology is the minerals industry that wants to access the gold and the silver because it's the measure of worth to the planet. Yeah. Everybody feels the challenge coming on. They scramble to buy gold,
Yeah.
Gold goes up. Of course it does. Well, anyhow, gold is extraordinary stuff. And, it's literally the divine stardust that came from that cosmic implosion, explosion, and then centrifuged, into this gorgeous planet, this Mother Earth, and we call the gold in her being the mother lode. It's the mother lode. And she has, equitably, she has held it in a state of retort, and this is her reply from the crucible of fire, that she sends that gold up through a silicious matrix, silica matrix, and pushes it up through the veins, and up into those geological mountainous structures, to find voice and vibration. Now, gold is inert. It's just totally inert. You have a hunk of gold, it just sits there, it's inert, unless you have water, unless you have the silicious matrix, the silica, the silicious matrix. And nowhere more so is gold held as a divine presence than in our birth waters of origin. as nanoparticles in a silicious matrix, a divine seed. I mean, dial that into your computer out there, kids.
Wow. Wow.
It's worth considering that I'm not going to give you the answer to that.
Wow.
It's for you scientists to prove, and come to the party and honour that which the Indigenous people know.
Wow.
Yeah. The divine seed.
That's massive.
That's gorgeous. The next time I was on Waiheke Island with a whole bunch of beautiful young people, really astute, educated young people, really holding the space on this planet that we need held. And we were all on the beach, and then we waded down to the sea. It was my partner Trish, her daughter's birthday. So we were having a celebration. And as we waded into the sea, I said to everybody, can you feel the edge, the meniscus of the water, of the ocean, the great Mother Ocean? So they all came about me, and I said, let's just hold that in consciousness and presence for a while. Let's have a little bit of fun, kids, eh? Now realize this, that you are in a silicious living matrix of our ancestral birth water. And within these waters are nanoparticles of gold activated, the divine seeds. So open up your mind to the homeopathic resonance of that through all of your sensory. Open up your old mind. Open up your heart. Open up your whole intelligence, every cell. So we're just standing there in the water. And I said, now slowly move down, feeling the meniscus, the edge of the water, as sharp as obsidian. Peel an old skin off that gorgeous body and let it go. And as you go under the water, you'll hear it. And under the water, while you're down there, make one sound, one sacred old yogic sound, and go, Om.
Beautiful.
That is the sound a child makes when you ask them a question and they don't yet have the experience. They will go,
Beautiful. Wow. There's so much in this today, Mike, for people all around the world, in every situation that they may be in, to draw on their water for their own internal peace and for the greater activation of peace around them as well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. There's been a lot of little tools given away here today to go and play with,
Yep. I mean, I'm in the middle right at the moment to get myself back into this state of mind to be with you. Terrified, in other words, in a state of wehi, awe and wonderment. And what's going to come, I'm building a beautiful European bread oven out here on the land, and in preparation for all of the kids that are coming for a cup of tea and a loaf of bread. But just to turn to all of you out there and to reiterate, ngā mihi aroha, kia koutou te whānau o Waitaha Nui, that you really are this ancient family of memory carriers. My brother, Raymond Te Ruka, he made a decision to have himself buried at Yellow Springs because he wanted his po, his energy po, his manawa po manawa of his heart to be vibrating there, because we know the Native American Indian people, or the Native American people, sorry, they are Waitaha, as are the Native South American, Aboriginal, all over the planet, Celtic, Irish. We're all ancient to this. And so I call out to you, that Susie said before, when you go to a stream and you go under the water and you go, ha, and you let go, then come back up and go back down and send out that old yogic vibration, because the tongue stays on the floor of the mouth and it's the arm. And do it in your sound. Find your primordial nature sound, the awkward sound, the one that is disturbing, that isn't on the scale of Pythagoras, and go down under that water and just let go and sing the song, because water is the most powerful conduit of vibration and sound. And the journey from the spring to the stream, to the river, to the sea, every time we do it, we go down here and we send our song to the springs all over the world. And Aotearoa, and my brothers and sisters of Aotearoa, I want to say to you out there, don't be afraid when you hear me say that Māori is an adept way of being, that to be Māori is that way of being ordinary, at one with the universe, because I know that a number of you have only just realised that you carry Māori whakapapa lineage. But I'm saying this from the old people, and they would say to you right now, don't you tell me you are Māori unless you are being Māori. And that is a challenge from Wikatore Rangitākina Ruka Harris, ki Waitaha. She is a grandmother there. And it is the most beautiful, beautiful recognition, because it brings us all back together to realise how ancient the whakapapa of Waitaha really is. And te ao Māori, and you'll hear me say that, Māori, and then I'll say Māori. This journey is so old on this planet. And to our brothers and sisters out there at a planetary level, I asked the question, how often have you gone down to the ocean and to drop down onto the water and to sing your gratitude in empathic harmonic accordance, and to let go of that song, to send that vibration out there? Oh, I assure you the whales will hear. They can hear for hundreds, thousands of kilometres. They know the song. And I've got right here a photo of my beautiful daughter, Jane. She's sitting here because I brought her up, and I brought Trish and I up with Harper so that they could look at me today, because I knew something was going to happen today further. That's my granddaughter. And they hold me accountable. I got no choice. In a world of choice, I have no choice because of the privilege I've been given. And within this land of Aotearoa, we actually have no choice. We have a privilege being here in this geologically, hydrologically, ecologically activated land, held within a powerful cultural appreciation by the old people, for us to remember the wisdom of the seed and the way of the water. So again, my challenge, it goes out there. How often have you gone to the ocean and sung to her in gratitude? How often do you get up in the morning and go down to the edge of your garden and practice your discordant song to her?
Mm-hmm.
When Emily was about 11, I think, she might correct me, she said, Dad, or Papa Bear, she calls me, Papa Bear, could we go on a journey, you, Mum and I? And we did. We went on a journey because she was studying marine biology, birds, mammals, everything. And we said, oh, why study it? Let's go and find these dudes, And so we headed off. It was phenomenal, extraordinary moments with whales and everything, and finding Emily in a cave in full conversation with a sentient being, the yellow-eyed penguin. And she didn't even know I was there. And there's this young girl talking away to this other being, We were about to leave, and Emily, we went, the three of us, we went up to see my old boss, Christopher Vine, a clay worker who gave me the space to become a clay worker. And he happened to mention that there was a homing dolphin over in Takaka. Well, Emily lit up. She said, Dad, can we go? I said, well, we're supposed to be crossing over to the North Island, but yeah, what the hell? What's another couple of days? So off we headed, you know, and we got out to this beach, and there was a woman, an elderly woman there, walking up and down the edge of the tide. And Emily and I went over and said, excuse me, but we heard there's a homing dolphin here. Have we got the right place? And she said, yes, you have. And she said, but we haven't seen it for quite a few days. And I said, oh, right, okay. Oh, well, and Em looked a bit sad about that. And said, oh, Em, she was so hoping. And anyhow, I said, come on, let's get our togs on. It was bloody freezing. I said, come on, let's get our togs on. Min declined. She said, no, I'll just wait up here and in the sun. And you go in. And so we waited out and up to about chest height, and we're just there in the water. And I was looking at Emily, and she had tears in her eyes, which just brought the tears up in my eyes like only your girl can do, you know. And she got me going, and I thought, oh, what the hell? I said, hold on, Em, I'm just going down. And so I took a big breath, and I went down under the water, and I sang, in the summertime, when the living is easy, hush, little baby, don't you cry. And I came up out of the water, you know, and all of a sudden, and there's a shark's fin coming straight at us. And Emily said, oh, whitebait, Dad. We're whitebait.
We're whitebait, yeah.
Whitebait. Yeah, big joke at a tense moment. But it wasn't. It was the biggest mother dolphin I have ever seen. Once she turned, we saw the shape of the fin. But coming at us, it just looked like a shark's fin coming in for a good muncher, you know. And it came around and around us. It played with us. It got between us. It pushed us over. Emily was just, we were both shaking, and then it just cuddled right up to us. And this is a huge mother. It's not some little dolphin, you know. This is a huge mother dolphin, and she got her head right up beside us. And in that moment, she rolled on her side towards Emily, and she looked into her eyes, and the eye was that big. She opened up the eyes, and then Emily said, oh, my God, Dad, Mum, look. And we all looked into the eye of that dolphin, and all of the oils on the meniscus of the eyeball were floating. You know how oil does? Mm-hmm. And it was magenta and violet and blue. Beautiful. And then it set. And Emily said, Dad, look. And it was the planet Earth. And she said, there's Africa, Dad. There's you, Dad.
Wow. Thank you.
We know the sentient nature of those beings, reminding us of the sentient nature of who we are through what medium? Water.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. To be continued, I suspect. Love you.
I brought my flute along again, and just to everyone out there, we've just had Tarariki, which is the celebration of the new year here, and thank God for that. I hated having New Year here on January the 1st. It wasn't
at all.
Yeah, the garden would get so upset. It's not the new year yet. You haven't got the seeds, you know. And so I went down, and they had a gathering in town, and I took the wilding clay that you had me eating last week of hauraki, and I made these little utangi puedu, and this one's still wet, just a little wee one, and it's got such a crisp, wild voice. And what I love is the sound of these two ancient instruments playing. This one, called the Putangetange Huedu, which is a cross-fertilization of Māori, Celtic, African, carrying water, a little water carrier, shaped of clay, and this one of our old Irish people. My old Irish people, they call the waters of life Ishkaba. We call them Te Waiora Atane. And this has just got such a, bringing these sounds together are again bringing the bipolar conversation of a song called Planet Earth. Nō reira, kia ora whānau. Ko te kupu tuatahi, ko te pita tuatahi, o te kūtao, te kore, i o te wananga. O Papatūānuku o Ranganui, o te waiwai ora o te hā, au ora o te puna waihanga, i te manawa, te manawa nui o te ao, ki te wairua o te aroha.
Thank you.